It's 6:30, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mélanie. Welcome to each and every one of you to our council meeting. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil. We respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Doki's First Nations. Covered by Robinson-Huron Treaty, we honor and recognize their historic connection to the land and value their significant contributions in shaping and strengthening our communities. We are grateful to be gathered here today. Nous soulignons respectueusement que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire désigné dans le traité Robinson-Huron, territoire traditionnel du peuple Anishinaabe, et particulièrement des Premières Nations Nipissing, Temagami et Dokis. Nous honorons leur lien historique avec cet endroit et nous apprécions leur contribution significative à nos communautés. Nous sommes reconnaissants d'être réunis ici aujourd'hui. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? None. We move on to the resolution, which is a resolution to deviate from normal agenda format and to adopt the agenda. Is there a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Yvon, Councillor Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Whereas Section 9.1.1 of the procedural bylaw sets out the format for council agendas, and whereas Section 9.2 of the procedural bylaw permits council to adjust the order of the agenda, matters by a resolution of 2/3 of the member present, and whereas council agrees to amend the order of the agenda for February 15th, 2022, in order to address matters impacting municipal operations and residents of the municipality, be it therefore resolved that the order of the February 15th, 2022 agenda be amended, and be it further resolved that the agenda for the meeting of February 15th, 2022 is adopted as presented.
Okay. Before calling it to a vote, we were notified that the reason that we're adopting this resolution is to be able to deal with matters that haven't been dealt with a while and to ensure that issues of concern with the corporation are dealt with in a timely fashion. I've noticed on the agenda that there's also two other issues. The issue of the notion pertaining to purchase of land, G1, that's been submitted dating back to October 29. So if there'd be no objection, if we can move forward that notice of motion prior to correspondence and accounts so it can be dealt with. And there's also the issue about the petition that was received for community services for the Cache Bay Trailer Park. I mean, that petition has been submitted to Town Hall, I believe, dating back to October. In fairness to the petitioners, we should be dealing with that petition before we deal with the petition that was received 2 weeks ago. So if there's no objections, propose that community services be the first committee to be dealt with before proceeding to Public Works. Jay?
Thank you, Joanne. The resolution you're voting on would allow you to do what you're doing, but you'd have to approve that resolution. Then when you go to adopt the agenda, then that's where you're adopting the agenda and you'd propose an amendment to move it at that time.
Yeah. So we
all you're doing with this one is allowing to do what you're asking to do, but it's at the next level. It's at the next subject that you would do what you're doing. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, Jay. Are you still around?
Oh, yeah.
I just need clarification to make sure I understand. Do we need to amend the resolution? No.
No, this resolution is just to amend the regular format of agendas as per your procedural bylaw. Then you have the agenda for which you wish to amend. So when you have the motion to adopt the agenda, that's where you would propose the amendment to do what
We
you want to
don't,
do.
point of clarification, we don't have another resolution.
It's combined.
Oh, again. You know what? I did it again. I thought they were separate. Yeah, you would do
No,
it now. I
they're
apologize. I'll
combined.
just go back to being invisible. Oh, I'll go back to being invisible then. Thank you.
So what we can do is, because we're altering the agenda, and since we've altered the agenda to be able to accommodate dealing with issues that have been not dealt with for quite a while. So the notice of motion, only the G1 will be dealt with prior to correspondence. And instead of dealing with the first committee of Public Works, we'll deal with Community Services, which will be the first committee. So we can deal with the issues that have been on the agenda for quite a while. We're fine? So we still have to vote on the resolution.
Yes, we need to vote on the resolution to adopt the agenda as amended.
We all got that? And it's one resolution. Councilor Burley,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't,
Could we vote on the motion as amended and then bring it back to as another amendment? Seems now we're voting on two amendments here.
we're really, well, you know, my understanding from what the CEO said, we are adopting a resolution to amend the format of the agenda, if I'm correct. And by doing.
Yeah, you are.
so-
And what I indicated, sorry, because I didn't realize they were combined, but it's still the same effect. You're proposing an amendment, so you would vote on the amendment first, and then
Okay.
if that's, then that forms the new
Okay.
agenda with the change format.
So it's really one amendment as proposed.
So we need to call to a vote the two changes that you requested. And then if they're adopted, then we'll adopt the agenda as amended.
Okay, so we are proceeding with the amended resolution.
We're proceeding to vote on the two amendments that you proposed, which was to move item G1
Okay,
and to move community services to the beginning of committee.
okay, so is there any objections with that so we can get those two matters out of the way? Councilor Rowley,
I do not have any problem with the amendment of the agenda as staff brought it forward. I do have issue with what you are proposing, Madam Mayor.
So let's vote on it.
so I'm calling it to a vote.
Okay.
And I've identified what was the request, and I identified that the request was to be able to deal with matters dating back to October, and that's why we're dealing with a resolution, changing the format. And in fairness to the petitioners, it would just sound fair that the ones that submitted a petition dating back to October be dealt with first before we deal with other petitions. So I'm calling it to a vote
So the
with the
motion,
First Amendment, with the
No.
notice of motion.
Two amendment at the same time, I think, she said.
Yeah. Just call it to a vote.
So I'm calling it to a vote with what's being proposed. So who's in favor that we modify the agenda to reflect the changes that were highlighted pertaining to purchase of land and the petition dating back to October? I'd need a mover and a seconder for that, eh, Melanie?
yes, please.
Okay.
Conseil Yvon? Conseil Alice? Do you want to read the resolution,
It is
Melanie?
moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal that the agenda be amended by moving item G1 to the end of, to before item F, and to move the Community Services Committee to the beginning of the committee meeting.
Yes.
I do, before we vote, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, the question I have obviously is related to that, but don't we have in our policy somewhere also that when we have item on the agenda and we're not able to finish the meeting, that they should be dealt at the next meeting for sure?
We do, and they are on the agenda.
Okay, so they need, it doesn't matter it's when it's adjourned that we should be starting where we left. Okay, thank
That's
you.
correct.
Great.
So coming back to the vote, our clerk read the resolution for the amendment.
Can I have a
Those that-
recorded vote, please?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Councillor Duhaime,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher.
You're
Councillor-
on mute, Conseil Fisher.
No,
Councillor Larrabee,
No,
Councillor Mallette.
No.
Pardon, Conseil Léo, on n'a pas compris. You're on mute.
Sorry, I said no. Sorry.
Councillor Ravita,
Nope.
Councillor Denis Senecal,
yes,
Councillor Lee Senecal,
Yes.
Mayor Joanne Savage,
Yes.
defeated. So
So
coming back,
coming, so now we have to revert to the original resolution
yes,
to adopt a different format with our agenda. We had a mover and a seconder initially for it. I believe it was Conseil Yvon and,
Councillor Chris.
okay. Those in favor? Carried, adopted. We proceed with planning. Mover and a seconder for D1, which is a grant and extension of the draft plan of subdivision. Mover and a seconder, Conseiller Chris. Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Whereas on May the 20th, 2014, Council for the Municipality of West Nipissing granted approval for a draft plan of subdivision for 9 lots on lands legally described as part of Lot 6 Concession A in the Township of Springer to DeLorme Properties, Inc. And whereas the applicant subdivider has received an earlier extension of the approved draft plan until March 2020, be it therefore resolved that the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby approves the further requested extension of the approved draft plan of subdivision number SUBD 2014-03 to DeLorme Properties, Inc. until February the 1st, 2024, to allow the applicant time to complete the required works in order to meet the previously set terms and conditions.
Madam
Are
Mayor,
there any questions?
No.
Conseiller Leo?
hey, thank you. Yes, to Melanie, it says Delorme Road, but on the map, it says Delorme Street. I guess just an error. If you look on the map, it says Delorme Street, and I think it's Delorme Road. if I'm not
Okay, it's just a typo, Councillor. We'll just
mistaken.
fix
Okay,
that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Conseiller Dan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Melanie, how many times can you ask for an extension, or not an extension, but a renewal?
There's no set number. It's entirely within council's purview to extend it as long as they wish.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Aucune autre question? Hearing none. Is there any objections? Aucune objection? Carried, adopted. Resolution to grant an extension of the draft plan subdivision Russell Main Street. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Chris. Conseiller Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Whereas on February the 21st, 2017, Council for the West Nipissing Municipality granted approval for a draft plan of subdivision with 13 lots on lands legally described as lots 20 to 24 on the east side of Main Street and lots 20 to 24 on the west side of Levike Street, Plan 11 in the town of Sturgeon Falls, to the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation of the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie. And whereas the aforementioned property was then sold to 1973743 Ontario Limited,
Are
be
there,
it therefore resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby approves the requested extension of the approved draft plan of subdivision SUVD 2017-01 to 1973743 until February the 1st, 2024, allowing the applicant time to complete the required works in order to meet the previously set terms and conditions.
any questions? Aucune question? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopté. A mover and a seconder to accept, assume, dedicated certain lands for public road, 82 Canal Road, Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-17, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of Lot 1, Concession B, being Part 3, Plan 36R 14672 in the geographic township of Springer, West Nipissing Municipality, being part of the traveled road known as Chemin Canal, Canal Road, Sturgeon Falls.
Any objections? Aucune objection? Carried, adopté. Resolution, mover and a seconder to be able to accept, assume, dedicated certain lands at 382 Canal Road. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-18, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of Lot 3, Concession B, Part 2, Plan 36R 14671 in the geographic township of Springer, being part of the traveled road known as Chemin Canal, Canal Road, Sturgeon Falls.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried, adopté. Mover and a seconder to accept, assume, and dedicate certain lands for public road at 756 North and South Shore and part of Millerin Road. Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Mallette and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-19, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of Lot 8, Concession 1, being Part 7 and 8 on Plan 36R 14716 in the geographic township of Kirkpatrick, Municipality of West Nipissing, being parts of the traveled roads known as Millerin Road and Chemin North and South Road in Verner.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried, adopté. Resolution to approve tile drainage loan application. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the application for a tile loan made under the Tile Drainage Act by Daniel Schwartzentruber and Leslie Bernard for the property described as 10725 Highway 17, being part of Lot 6, Concession 4 in the township of Caldwell, in the amount of $50,000 be accepted pending financing by the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs.
Are there any questions or any comments? Just a quick question. I heard that on the resolution, it made reference to Caldwell.
Yes, it was a
On the
resolution.
Pardon?
There was a mistake in the resolution that was included in your package that I didn't see. I apologize.
Okay, because it's a different township. It would be what, McPherson?
Yes, this property is in Caldwell.
Oh, the property is in Caldwell.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried, adopté. The next resolution, a mover and a seconder to be able to authorize a special drainage rate for the tile loan application. Councillor Chris. Conseiller Rowley.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-23, being a bylaw imposing special drainage rates upon lands in respect of which money is borrowed under the Tile Drainage Act, application made by Daniel Schwartzentruber and Leslie Bernard, part of Lot 6, Concession 4 in the Township of Caldwell, for roll number 4852-060-001-53700 in the municipality of West Nipissing shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any comments or questions? Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried, adopté. We move on to new business, affaires nouvelles. A mover and a seconder to be able to appoint a lottery licensing officer. Conseiller Rowley, Conseiller Dan.
It is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Vita. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-20 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2010-48 to appoint a lottery licensing officer and lottery licensing deputies for the municipality of West Nipissing shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any questions or comments? Conseiller Yvon?
So my assumption is that someone will be appointed within the office, Mel, within the
Yes,
workforce we have presently?
Yes, Councillor Duhaime, it's actually, the appointment is on the resolution or on the bylaw, and it's to appoint Najat Bilal.
Who would be appointed?
Okay, the resolution does identify that the appointment is Najat Goulard.
Oh, okay.
But it's on the bylaw, yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
it's to replace Louise Laforge.
That's good.
And Louise Laforge, I believe, officially retired effective at the end of December 2021. I don't want to be able to misquote an incorrect date, but on behalf of council, I think we also want to extend our best wishes to Louise and a big thank you for the many years of service that she's done for the Township of Caldwell and for the municipality of West Nipissing, who was a long-term employee with both organizations. So best wishes to Louise and best of wishes with future endeavors to the new lottery licensing officer, Najat Goulard. All in favor? Carried, adopted.
Before we go further, Madam Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, you may, Madam.
Because maybe, Madam Clerk, you did you understand me when I asked for a recorded vote for the amendment?
Yes,
Oh, okay, it's because I didn't remember if you went by name. Okay, sorry. Very good memory, but short at some point of time.
it's recorded.
Merci.
Okay, we move on to user fees and charges for the issuance of burial permits. We do have a resolution for it, so we need a mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-21 being a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 2001-21 for the West Nipissing municipality shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, so I'll pass it on to either back to you, to our planner, just to give us a quick overview of what members of council are voting on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This actually came to us as a request from the local funeral director. Because West Nipissing, the local funeral director is also the owner of the Simple Wishes basic cremation service in Sudbury. And West Nipissing has taken on the vast majority of the issuance of the burial permits because they have a lot of difficulty getting them turned around for in Sudbury. So he had come to us and indicated that given that we'd taken on a great deal more responsibility, that he felt that there should be a higher charge, given that Sudbury and North Bay are both charging more than we are. So he thought it would be equitable if we were charging the same since we're doing Sudbury's work here.
So what's being proposed is that the fee be increased, the burial permit be increased to $30.
That's correct.
Is there any questions or comments? Conseiller Chris?
So I guess my question would be, because people are getting that service from outside our municipality. So how much work is involved to issue that permit? Is that like a 15-minute job, or is it a 5-minute job?
It's a little bit more than that, because when we receive them, we check them. We then have to prepare 2 documents, scan them, send them back to the funeral home. And then there's also monthly reporting to the weekly and monthly reporting to the Registrar General's office for all of the burial permits that we issue for vital statistics. So all in all, I'd say each one is about, I'm going to say half an hour all told.
So I guess my next question would be if I can continue, Madam Mayor?
Yes, you may.
So if I could ask our treasurer, like what I fully, because this is service that we're putting to people that are not necessarily our users, what would our fully costed FTE charge be per hour? And let's say that's half an hour. And then to my mind, that fee should be, there's no way that the taxpayers of Westminster should be paying for services that are coming out of, that we're providing to Sudbury residents. So I'd want that to cover it at least.
But the owner of the organization is our resident.
Right, but it's Sudbury people that are, you know what I'm saying? I understand that he's a resident, but that workload is coming from Sudbury. The bonus of the workload on yourself, on the municipality, is not our residents, is my point. So I just, out of interest, I mean, I guess my question is $30 a month enough?
So may I, Councillor Chris, just to paraphrase, are you looking at finding out if $30 really compensates for the time
Exactly.
and usage of machine, whatever, compensate to reimburse it at 100% with the $30 that's being proposed?
Yes, exactly. And that would be, I guess, a question for our treasurer. Thank you.
So I'll just leave it to our Director of Corporate Services to respond if it does. It's always been an understanding that our fees that we set is not to make a profit, but to generate, to recoup the expenses. And I guess Councillor Chris wants the assurance that the $30 does recoup the expenses to provide a burial permit.
So just on a quick look, Councillor Fisher, I mean, it depends a little bit of the mix of clerk time versus front office clerk time, but it's going to be pretty close.
Okay, in that case, I'm happy. Thank you very much.
Conseiller Lise?
Well, just a comment, I guess we won't be paying for it. Somebody else will pay it for us, right? When it's our turn.
Yeah.
Buy the package ahead of time, you'll be paying for it.
Yeah. Well, I have to save $5 more now towards my burial.
Let's just focus on setting the fee,
Okay.
I think. So coming back to what's being recommended and with the explanation, it's to increase the burial permits up to $30. Though, is there any objections? Aucune objection. Hearing none, carried, adopté. Need a mover and a seconder for the rental assistance pour les filles d'Isabelle. Conseiller Lise? Conseiller Chris?
It is moved by Councillor Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Whereas at the February 15th meeting, Council received a request from the Filles d'Isabelle requesting that financial assistance received from the West Nipissing municipality to be applied towards their leasing responsibilities be continued for the year 2022. Be it therefore resolved that Council authorizes a financial contribution of $3,600 at $300 per month be sustained for les Filles d'Isabelle to be applied towards their rental costs for the rent for the year 2022.
Any questions or comments? Any objections? Aucune objection. Hearing none, carried, adopté. A mover and a seconder for the rental assistance with the West Nipissing Food Bank. Conseiller Lise, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Lee Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Whereas at the meeting of February the 15th, Council received a request from the West Nipissing Food Bank requesting that financial assistance received from the West Nipissing municipality to be applied towards the rental expenses be continued for 2022. And whereas West Nipissing Food Bank has informed the municipality that their monthly rent has increased from $530 to $572.40 plus HST. Therefore, be it resolved that Council authorizes a financial contribution of $7,761.74, being $646.81 per month, be sustained for the West Nipissing Food Bank, which funds will be applied towards their 2022 rental expenses.
Are there any questions or comments? Conseiller Lise,
Well,
Conseiller Bon?
just a question, is there, because I find like going from 530 to 572, it's, I don't have a calculator, maybe Alicia will have it in her head, but I cannot, it's steep. Is there an amount that you're allowed to increase or it's gone?
Not in commercial.
Not in commercial? Okay, then, okay, I understand. Right, it's not that okay, got it.
Yvonne,
you.
did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Edis. I just want to mention, like, we're passing resolutions here. The Filles d'Abel and West Nipissing Food Banks are two organizations that are doing a lot for our community, our residents, and I certainly commend them on their work. And I'm very hopeful that we'll accept this one as well, because I certainly support them in every way possible. So I thank them for their service very much. Thank you, Madam Edis.
Conseiller Broley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, same here as what Councillor James said. But I'd have a question, maybe it would be to our CAO, or do we have space to accommodate at our in the municipal buildings to house those services, or is it cheaper to do it that way?
Well, to be honest, we haven't really analyzed it a whole lot as to where their preference would be. I would suggest, though, that we have some buildings that are in transition, and that we've just had some moves, some operational moves, and we're looking at trying to consolidate and free up some space to be able to unload some real estate. So I wouldn't want to make a false promise and down the line have to remove it.
Okay, maybe further, maybe down the line we could look at it. Yeah.
And I believe, Conseiller Broley, when the food bank did move location, as well as the Filles d'Abel, they did knock at our door to find out whether or not if we had suitable space, and staff did research, and unfortunately at the time we didn't. And presently, I don't believe, according to the summary that the CEO provided, that we do at this time either. Conseiller Leo?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it'd be especially for the food bank, just for information for Councillor Arabi. I know through free labor and fundraising, they built a walk-in freezer where they are now. So it'd be problematic to move somewhere else. If we can accommodate, fine, but I mean, right now, I don't think it's doable. It's just for information. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So coming back to the resolution, I didn't hear any objections. Those in, just to make sure, any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopté. Need a mover and a seconder for the continued winter maintenance for the Royal Canadian Legion. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Denis Senecal and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Whereas at the February 15th meeting, Council received a request from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 225 requesting that financial assistance received from the West Nipissing municipality be applied towards their winter maintenance for snow removal and sanding expenses be continued for 2022. Be it therefore resolved that council authorizes the West Nipissing municipality to continue financial support to the Royal Canadian Legion Grants 225 by covering their winter maintenance expenses for 2022.
Are there any questions or comments? Conseiller Dan?
Madam Mayor. So the question would be, is that we're paying the expenses of a contractor? In other words, our public works people are not doing it?
What I'm going to do is I'll pass it on to our CEO because I'm really not clear. I think last year we were paying the contractor. This year, I'm not sure what we're doing at this time.
Lisa, you're paying the bills. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. We haven't done anything yet, but that would be the arrangement again, is that they have their contractor and that they would submit to us for reimbursement for their contractor.
Okay. Thank you.
I do know that when we discussed the subject matter last year, we were going to consider adopting a policy pertaining to where winter maintenance would be done by the municipality, because we have a few and where we are compensating for the winter maintenance. I know since then, like we have the Club d'Ashdata Field, Night of Columbus, and Club d'Ashdata River, Night of Columbus and Field, the Legion. So I think it probably would be wise that in the near future, we have a policy, as we had agreed to last year, come forward. And then this way, these issues don't have to come back every year on the table. And maybe at that time, when we do talk about the policy, we can get an update for the winter maintenance because St. Margaret's-Vieux as well. Because that was an issue that we had discontinued, but I'm not too sure whether or not if it's been reinstated based on information that's been shared in the last few months pertaining to the outcome of a ruling. So that's just a remark, observation outside of the resolution. But coming back to this resolution, are there any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopted. A mover and a seconder, so we can proceed with the memorandum of understanding for the West Nipissing Snowmobile Club. Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the West Nipissing Municipality of West Nipissing be authorized to execute a memorandum of understanding with the West Nipissing Snowmobile Club to authorize the use of a portion of Stewart and LeBlanc roads for their trail system for the 2022 season.
Are there any questions or comments? Just directing a question to our CEO. Are there any proposed changes to this MOU for this year in comparison to the MOU of last year? I see our clerk saying no.
It's the exact same agreement as last year.
So it's an identical agreement. Okay. So did anyone have any questions? None? Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried, adopted. A mover and a seconder for the appointment of a volunteer community appointment for the West Nipissing Public Library Board. Conseiller Dan, Conseiller Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Revita and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Whereas at the February 15th meeting, Council considered an application to fill a vacancy on the West Nipissing Library Board. Be it therefore resolved that Catherine Hatton be appointed to the West Nipissing Public Library Board for the remainder of the 2018-2022 term.
And that vacancy occurred because we had a community appointee that resigned. It was advertised, maybe through our clerk. When it was posted, do we know how it was posted? Was it posted strictly on social media, or was there other mechanism to advertise the vacancy?
I honestly, your worship, cannot answer that. I believe it was posted on social media and on our website. However, we often put something in the Tribune that directs people to the website that I can't say for 100% sure that we did that. I have
Okay,
to find out and get back to you.
okay. Are there any other questions, comments? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none. Carried, adopté. Congratulations and welcome Catherine Hayton to the West Nipissing Public Library Board. A mover and a seconder for the award of the RFP for Housing Needs and Development Strategy. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Yvonne.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Whereas 3 requests for proposal were received for the Housing Needs and Development Strategy, and whereas the proposals have been reviewed by the Director of Economic Development and Corporate and Community Services and the Economic Development Officer, as well as members of the Economic Development Committee, and the award being recommended herein consists of the best score meeting all of the specifications, and whereas Council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved the proposal for the Housing Needs and Development Strategy in the West Nipissing Municipality be awarded to Colliers project leaders, having received the highest rating score meeting all specifications.
Are there any questions or comments? Conseiller Lise?
Well, I have a couple. I'm looking at the paper and there's a point, I guess, form like that was provided, like leader, associate, 30% for price, process, price, the 30% quality of proposal. But would usually know the price. They go to the lowest of the highest bid, because I'm looking at the point right now and there's 2 point different with 2 associate, whatever they call it, consultant. One is 88, one is 86. And if you go to the price, one is 29 and one is 26. So I guess that was based on the total amount of the point, not just the financial price. And I would like to know, and I think people should know the price, how much it costs for a consultant. It's Mr. Stefan, are you going to answer that, or I'm directing to somebody else?
I was just waiting for the mayor to give me the floor.
I was
Okay.
waiting for you to finish the question so I can pass it on to the chair of
And I have
Economic
finished. I
Development
caught
for a
it. I
response.
caught it 6 seconds that I was finished talking. Usually. Okay, thank you.
I'll pass it on to the chair of Economic Development.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. The price is only one component. When you're reviewing requests for proposals, there's a lot of different factors that come into play. You normally will recommend the highest score. That being said, we do have budgets we need to remain within. This study happens to not give it to the lowest bidder. Who we're recommending, it was very close on the price, but who we're recommending met more of our requests within the proposal and scored higher. But the price for the Colliers project leaders is $56,630 plus HST, and that is well within the allocated budget of $75,000.
Thank you. And you can tell us a little bit about, because the name, they're not from the region, I gather, because I don't recognize any name, which maybe I wouldn't anyways, but are they from the region?
No, they're not, no.
Okay.
So can we reflect the cost that we're awarding a RFP in the amount of, what was the amount that you've identified?
$55,630 plus HST.
Can the amount be reflected on the resolution? Any objections with that? And I saw that Councillor Dan had his hand up.
Madam Chair, question is for the Director or Economic Development Director, Social Services, or whatever your title is, Steph. Sorry about that, but so the time frame is what, Steph?
I believe, and I'd have to go back and get particulars, but I believe they said that within 12 to 16 weeks, we could expect to have a draft report of the study. Like there's consultation that need to happen. So once we award with them, we will go back. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe, and again, we've reviewed so many of these proposals, I'd have to go back and confirm dates, but I think we're looking at, for this proposal, either August or September-ish. So we're looking at a 4 or 5 month period. I'd have to go back, Councillor, to really give you accurate details.
Supplemental to that, please.
Yes.
Are we going to be looking, when we talk about housing needs, I'm assuming that we're going to be looking at the continuum of housing, i.e. we're going to be looking right from low barrier shelters right up to propriety, a house or home.
It's
That's
the
correct.
understanding that it would be all inclusive. That
Yes.
was identified, and I think it was an issue that you've identified also in the past, Conseil Dan. But at the advisory level, it's to be able to look at everything like you've identified.
And it's going to look at available land, infrastructure. It's going to look at housing needs.
Funding,
Yeah, it's also going to look at funding, but it's also going to look at opportunities to develop housing in not only Sturgeon Falls or the what we call the urban areas, but throughout all of West Nipissing.
Okay, thank you.
and just as information, when our Director of Corporate Services made reference to the cost for this proposal, I believe the highest proposal that was received was over 150,000. Would that be correct, Stefan?
174,000 to be exact.
Yeah, so there
Wow.
was three proposals, and the range was from 53,000 to 174,600.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, it's just,
Conseil Yvon?
the need for housing is unbelievable in Sturgeon Falls at this present moment. And we need a housing that is geared to income, because I've been receiving a lot of calls, because I do have apartments, and they are basically crying on the phone for places to live. So hopefully this could be completed as soon as possible, and that we can start, hopefully get some people to build what is required. There's a high need in Sturgeon Falls and area all over our West Nipissing. Thank you.
And, if I may just summarize, people who are listening to what they're hearing this evening, going with the conduct a study for housing, when everyone is saying there's a need for housing. But I think by having that study completed to identify the priorities, the gaps, and the opportunities that we can use to be able to leverage either for funding or even to entail the private sector investment or other sectors that would be willing to invest, so we can get things moving and rolling as quickly as possible. Would that be a fair summary
Yeah, It
to
certainly
our
is.
Director of Corporate
Sure.
of Economic Development?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. And,
Okay.
and, they're going to consult with developers. They're going to consult with our key stakeholders. They're going to consult with residents, and they're going to identify gaps and needs and develop a plan for us to be able to move forward on housing development within our community to meet everyone's needs.
Okay, so there wasn't a proposed amendment to the original resolution, and the amendment was to incorporate the award of the amount 55,630 plus HST. So I have to call it to a vote for the amendment, and that would require a mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Chris. Any objections with the proposed amendment to include the amount of the tender that's being awarded? Hearing none, carried.
Well, I think we should vote on this, shouldn't we? Because it's not
So
a,
that, no, that's what
not
I'm
an RF.
asking.
no, but excuse me, can I just make my comment?
Well, proceed.
This is an RFP and it's not a tender. So why would we put the numbers in there?
At the end of the day, we are awarding a RFP to Collier project leaders in the amount of 55,630 plus HST. There's no policies that state not to identify the amount. I do know that historically, it's been echoed by council that council really appreciates to know who are the proponents, what was the amount of the work proposed, and identifying who is the successful award to. So here, it's only to incorporate the amount. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just being transparent so the public knows that we're giving out a tender.
But is this the right form to do it?
Yes.
May I ask the question to the CEO, please?
So you want to ask the CEO if it's okay to add the amount on the resolution?
I'm asking that we.
No, Councillor Dan, I'm just clarifying with you. Is that your question?
No,
You
I'll
want to ask the CEO if it's okay to add the amount for the RFP of who's the successful company that will be awarded the tender for what amount? Is it appropriate, Jay, that we add the amount on the resolution?
Joanne, it is an RFP, and as your Director of Economic Development and Community Services indicated to you, there's an average of ranking, and so you don't have to, it wasn't the determinant factor. I think the conversation, you could do it, yes, council could add that, but typically when you award an RFP, you're naming.
I guess the question I was asking that was directed to you, Jay, is it appropriate that we add the amount on the resolution? Is there anything that prohibits us from not adding the amount?
Well, it could be an issue of whether the submission in and of itself, when it's an RFP, and I think the Director of Corporate Services can comment on this. The only thought or concern I would have, actually, you mentioned the submissions bid, so at this point, I suppose it's not an issue. But when you're submitting for an RFP or you're bidding on an RFP and not a publicly open tender, there is competitive pricing issues that would come into play. And that's why you would just basically pick the successful candidate. But if Elisa's on, is there any validity to that, Elisa?
There's no problem with putting the amount in the resolution, though. So everything is correct. We don't usually disclose it in the assessment. The assessment is based on all kinds of other factors. We're now awarding this specific amount, so yeah.
So there you go.
Okay, well, thank you for the answer. So there was an amendment. Coming back to the amendment, it was proposed to add the amount of 55,630 plus HST. And I was asking if we already had a mover and a seconder for the amendment, if there was any objections to the amendment.
And
are there any objections to the amendment?
I object.
Okay, you haven't. I haven't called it to a vote yet. I wanted to see. So, hearing one objection, it means that the resolution.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, but I would be afraid to set a precedent on this. So, I also would object to this, please.
Okay.
Can we vote on it, Madam Mayor?
No, you had the right to your question. I have a right to my question too.
Okay, Conseil Elise, yes?
Well, it's because we're talking about that, but it's not the first time we're doing that. We did it for the
Mhm.
the thing with last year when we signed, we agreed to give Mr. Gannett the running of the trailer park. The amount was put, we had the same basically, and that's what I was
Right.
asking, because the number was different number assigned to different things, because it's not just the price, it was the way experience and everything, which is basically the same thing that you're showing us, and the amount was put and was asked, and I don't know what the big deal is, because we're spending the money of the people, and we're talking about being transparent. So let's get
Yeah.
it to a vote, and
So you know what, I'll ask our clerk to read, I'm going to request a recorded vote. I'm just seeking transparency on behalf of council for the public to know how much that we're going to be spending on a study for housing and who's been awarded the study. So I do have a right to ask for a recorded vote, and I'll pass it back to the clerk for the recorded vote for the amendment.
For clarification, we're just voting on the amendment to include the price in the RFP, in the
That's
resolution
correct.
to award the RFP.
Yeah, we weren't successful moving ahead from that.
Okay, Councillor Duhaime,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher,
I'm completely indifferent.
well, you have to say something, Councillor Fisher.
and you're
Yes.
abstaining?
No, he said yes.
Okay. Councillor Larrabee,
No,
Councillor Millet,
Yes.
Councillor Ravita,
You're on mute, Conseil Dan.
I know, Madam Mayor. No.
Councillor Denis Senecal,
Yes.
Councillor Lee Senecal,
Yes.
Mayor Joanne Savage,
Yes.
carried.
So the amendment is carried and will reflect the amount.
That's
We
correct.
need a mover and a seconder to award the RFP for the housing needs, for the land use and development strategy. Conseil Chris. Conseil Leo. When we make reference to land use and development strategy, I'll let the resolution be read, but probably there might be questions after. Sorry, Lenny.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Millet. Whereas 3 requests for proposal were received for the land use and development strategy, and whereas the proposals have been reviewed by the Director of Economic Development, the Economic Development Officer, as well as members of the Economic Development Committee, and the award being recommended herein consists of the best score meeting all of the specifications, and whereas Council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the proposal for the land use and development strategy in the West Nipissing municipality be awarded to Collier's project leaders, having received the highest score meeting all specifications.
And the land use development strategy, that's, we're talking about the old warehouser property that council purchased and over a year ago, and we said that there would be a study that would be conducted, consultation to find out what are the potential opportunities, initiatives that can be developed on that land. And that was one of the 2 priorities that were set by the Economic Development Advisory Committee and had been approved by council with the required funding. I'll just pass it on to our Director of Stefan. I don't know. To our Director of Economic Development and Community Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. We basically also, in addition to the 27 acres that everyone familiar with the site calls the former warehouser property, we also added municipal land that is across Front Street. So from the Dodge dealership, including the information center, all the way to the bridge on that side of the highway is all owned by the municipality. So we've also included that as part of the study to consult with stakeholders and business development opportunities and look at multiple use for these 2 sites and get the best use of those properties moving forward. So And not only is it the Warehouser property, but we've included the highway commercial land across Front Street.
And the proposed cost for this study by Collier leaders is how much?
This is, they ended up scoring the highest, and they are also the lowest bid or the lowest price. It's at $74,570 plus HST.
And I believe that the highest bidder went nearly at $300,000.
295. Yeah.
295. So it was a range between 74,570 to $295,000.
Correct.
So I'll propose an amendment here so we can also add the amount to the resolution of $74,570 plus HST to the project leaders to conduct the study for the land use and development strategy. Is there a mover and a seconder for the amendment? Conseiller Alice, Conseiller Yvon. Are there any objections or any questions? Hearing none. Carried, adopted. We need a mover and a seconder to amend a resolution pertaining to a project that's being delayed for Highway 539 and Highway 805. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Mallette and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Whereas at a meeting held on July the 13th, 2021, Council received a presentation from the Ministry of Transportation through its consultants DM Wills Engineering Limited and LEA Consulting Limited, outlining certain upgrades to be carried out on highways 539 and 805. And whereas Council passed a resolution number 2021-282 on August 30th, 2021, authorizing the temporary full closure of highways 539 and 805 during the 2022 or 2023 construction season to allow the required upgrades to the highways, including the replacement and or rehabilitation of multiple culverts. Whereas on January the 22nd or January 10th, 2022, the municipality received new information from the consultant advising that the MTO has pushed back the scheduled rehabilitation of highways 539 and 805 by 1 year. And whereas the consultant/contractor is seeking an amendment to the resolution in order to reflect the new proposed construction dates, be it therefore resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality is agreeable to the anticipated temporary full closures of highways 539 and 805 as necessary in order to complete the rehabilitation and multiple rapid culvert replacements between River Valley and Warren as follows. Highway 539, 3 weeks full closure Monday to Friday, reopen on weekends, summer 2023. And Highway 805, 1 week full closure Monday to Friday, reopen on weekends, fall 2023. And be it further resolved that all other requirements as set out in Resolution 2021-282 shall remain in effect and be adhered to, which such requirements shall include but are not limited to proper detour signage, notification to residents, and coordination of emergency services.
Are there any questions or comments? Conseiller Rowley, Conseiller Chris?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I got a comment on this. We had agreed for the removal, the replacement of the culverts on 539, the 805 to be done this year. In January of 2021 at the Roma conference, you, Madam Mayor, and myself, we asked MTO if they could classify that 539 from River Valley to Warren to have it upgraded to no longer having half loads on it. So that would mean that they would have to restructure it better with better pavement. Yet we haven't heard from them if that's going to be the case. So for me to support this, first I would like to have a confirmation that that's their intention of upgrading that road. There's a lot of exploration going on at this time with the mining industry. So it would be to our advantage, to the company's advantage, if we were to have this road upgrade. And also, they're not mentioning anything about the 539A, which we had identified, if you recall, Madam Mayor, that it needs to be replaced in the community of River Valley, and that didn't appear on this request. So if we could have staff contact MTO and get some confirmation on their work plan for the community itself.
So
Thank
what I
you.
hear from you, Conseil Broley, I definitely concur with both your comments, because there are issues that we were confirmed that they would get back to us, and that has not occurred. And now with the proposed delay of this work, I hear that we should communicate with MTO first, get answers to the pending concerns that we were assured would be looked at, and for that information to come back at a next committee. So are
Agreed.
you putting in a request for deferral?
Please, yes.
Before you
Okay.
do, I have some answers.
Sorry, Jay?
Oh.
Okay, again, that's the, I have some answers. I don't know if I'm recollecting things wrong, Councillor Larrabee, but you had made that inquiry with me about 6 months ago. I did inquire. And so the issue with the town or the town of River Valley proper is it's not this contract. So the simple fact is it's not part of this contract, but we were assured it's part of a subsequent contract that's coming in. So I think I explained to you that they're doing both first, and then they're going to go and head that way. And it is planned to be done as you were assured with the minister. The second part, I thought we received in the affirmative that one of those pathways was going to be paved, but that one there I would confirm.
Yeah.
So
I think.
So you know, we did get some response. Okay.
Okay, we did some, but from what I hear from Conseil Broley is that we want to make sure that we do have the information from NPO in writing, and it could be an opportunity for us at this point, since the work that was initially proposed for 2022 is now being delayed for 2023, that we have the opportunity to speak with MTO and to hash all of these at the same time with a firm plan.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so right now, when there's a motion for deferral, we stop talking about the subject. We have a counselor that recommends a deferral, so all of this can be reviewed, researched, and brought back. Is there a seconder for the deferral? Conseil Yvon? And now this would be deferred, hopefully, to the next Public Works Committee, if we can have an update. And if there's no update, we could be told that it's in progress. Would that sound fair?
Well, it's a resolution, so it would be deferred to a next meeting unless it's referred to a committee. So if you want the response once the resolution comes back, if the information comes back, it could be as early as next meeting, because it doesn't form part of committee, it forms part of a resolution.
Okay, but can we defer it to the next Public Works Committee? This way, we're looking at the month of March, which would allow the opportunity to have that discussion and receive correspondence from MTO.
Then you're asking for a motion to refer with an R, not defer with a D, because you're referring it to another place. That's all. That's why
Okay,
I talked about deferral. If it's
So
a
I'm just-
resolution, you're deferring it. Okay.
I understand,
Mhm.
Jay. I'm just going to go back to the request of Conseil Broley, a referral or a deferral, Conseil Broley?
A referral.
Okay, so the request is a referral to the next Public Works Committee with the information. And Conseil Yvon seconds that. So I saw our clerk had her hand
I
up.
just wanted to know, are we going to vote on the referral?
Yes. Yeah, that's why I was just reconfirming. So it would be a a motion for referral to the next Public Works Committee.
That's good.
Could I just ask a really quick question?
Customarily, when there's a request for referral or deferral, that's when we stop discussing the matter and we call that matter to a vote.
Okay,
So calling it to a vote for the subject matter to be referred to the next Public Works Committee. Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopted. Okay, a mover and a seconder for the signing of the franchise agreement with Enbridge Gas. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved, the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality approves the form of bylaw 2022-24 and franchise agreement attached and authorizes the submission thereof to the Ontario Energy Board for approval pursuant to the provisions of Section 9 of the Municipal Franchises Act. And be it further resolved that Council requests that the Ontario Energy Board make an order declaring and directing that the assent of the municipal electors to the attached draft and franchise agreement pertaining to the corporation of the municipality of West Nipissing is not necessary pursuant to the provisions of Section 9(4) of the Municipal Franchises Act.
Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Chris, and I was going to ask if we also, as far as administration, I'm not sure, would it be a Director of Economic Development and Community Services? Melanie?
It's me.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks for the clarification. So I'll pass the floor to Conseiller Chris.
so I just have a quick question, just because I find this number quite staggering. It says we currently service approximately 3,400 customers within the municipality. And if I take that as households, then that seems to me, that's a staggering percentage of the households in West Nipissing that have gas service. Is that number correct? Or is that people in households?
That would be numbers of
Just see,
service.
we only have about, I mean, how many households do we have? Like 6,000 is our full number of households. And they're saying they already service 3,400. I find it surprising. That's why I'm asking.
That would include Verner and Cache Bay as well.
And it's not really just households, it says customers, so it could be businesses or it could be, not
Right.
strictly dwellings.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Or just, is this a formality because Union Gas and the name change and having the renewal done with Enbridge? Okay, so for people to understand, it's not any new service that's being added. It's just the formality of making sure that with the renewal and having the proper name.
It's a renewal of the franchise agreement. Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. In the early 2000s, it's basically an agreement to allow them to run their services on our streets.
Okay,
And it was due for renewal. And the name change is part and parcel.
thank you. Are there further questions or clarification that's needed? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopted. A mover and a seconder to be the resolution to ratify the memorandum of settlement with the West Nipissing Professional Firefighters Association. Councillor Chris, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Malette. Be it resolved that the memorandum of settlement between the municipality of West Nipissing and the West Nipissing Professional Firefighters Association Local 1531 for the period of January 1, 2020 to December 31st, 2022 be ratified as presented.
I'll pass it on to our CEO and Director of Corporate Services just to give us a quick overview with the additional information that was provided to members of council.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a good negotiation strategy with our Professional Firefighters Association. Once again, it was very cordial and they're very reasonable in their requests. I will pass on the settlement to Ms. Craddock. Ms. Craddock was the chief negotiator working and came to a settlement, and I'll have her describe the results.
Thank you. So you see the memorandum of settlement sort of highlights what the changes in the agreement are. And a lot of the first part really is just cleaning up language, both to sort of come in line with some of our other agreements as far as, the statutory holidays and I said language, that removes references to Wisconsin police and things like that. The absence of the Ontario Fire College, things like that. So a lot of it was just housekeeping as we went through this. Small change in vision care. The wage increase is, so it is a 3-year agreement, but they've been without an agreement since the end of 2019. So it is a retroactive agreement. And it's in keeping with amounts that were budgeted in those years. And it's really keeping it in line with provincial numbers. You're probably aware that emergency services across the province tend to operate within a band of very similar rates. And if you get outside of that, you end up in arbitration, and arbitrators put you back into those rates and things like that. So it was a very reasonable settlement as far as our wages. The same with the retiree health spending. That is something that's being seen in most emergency services agreements now, to have that health spending account. The health spending account certainly is as far as post-retirement benefits is a good way for an employer to handle post-retirement benefits. So overall, as Mr. Barrow said, we had a good couple days of negotiations with the association. A good relationship between ourselves and the association, and we feel very positive with this agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Conseiller Chris?
I can just add that I did I did speak to the chief, and he basically confirmed everything that Elisa just said, and it's very much in line and average of what's going on in the province. So no surprises at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone else? I just had one comment and 2 questions. I'll start with the 2 questions. Is it a standard practice across the province for emergency services to be able to provide benefit assistance between the age of 65 and 75?
Yeah, it's included in a lot of agreements now, and it's being arbitrated into the other ones.
Okay, thank you. And based on the negotiation that took place, our CEO made reference that you were chief negotiator for the agreement. So was the negotiation strictly done in-house with no outside consultant?
Correct.
Wow, okay, well, congratulations. Any further questions or comments? None? So coming back to the resolution, any objections? Hearing none, carried at defeat. Okay, we have one more resolution to support the DSAB for their supporting provincial funding for housing and health supports for vulnerable Gateway House. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Dan, do you want to be a mover or seconder on that resolution? Conseiller Dan? Conseiller Leo?
It is moved by Councillor Ravita and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Whereas the municipality of West Nipissing has received a request for support from the District of Nipissing Social Services Administration Board, encouraging member municipalities to advocate for housing and health staffing support funding for the district's transitional housing development known as Gateway House with the provincial government. And whereas the Gateway House is a shelter providing not only housing but health supports to the district's most vulnerable population, be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby supports DSAB's request and call on the provincial government to provide necessary funding to support the operations of Gateway House in order to provide aid with health and housing services for the district's most vulnerable population.
Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Dan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing that I'd like to bring to the attention to the council members is that the province has made a change in policy in regards to low barrier shelters. And for people that don't know what low barrier shelters are, these are the shelters where people go in at night and then leave in the morning. And they basically are not, they're not exposed to the services that you need to get out of the homelessness situation. These transitional housing apartments that we've put together at the Chippewa campus, and that's if you're going to North Bay, it's the old OPP station that a proprietor bought and basically is converting into these units. And basically what happens is you have these wraparound services for these people. Once you're admitted to the to these housing, you have addiction and mental health services there. There's 24/7 service for these individuals. And then they graduate from there to a apartment that would be on the same location where there's no common area, but you have your own apartment and you're basically self-sustained. And with the idea of moving on to subsidized housing or non-subsidized housing after. So it's a continuum of the whole past housing continuum. And thing is that this is a district-wide service. I've had some individuals referred to be considered for that. They've contacted me because they know I'm on DSAB. And there is a process in place. You apply through the North Bay Crisis Center. You're evaluated. All workers that look after individuals that would be this homeless type of individual, whether they're on OW, whether they're on the provincial funding monies, would be able to access through their caseworker. So what we're asking is that we put pressure on the province to. The province was very good in the sense of giving us money to build it, but they have not given us any money to operate it. And it's a very expensive operations. And what we're trying to do is lobby the province of Ontario to take over the operations also, because otherwise it'll become a problem of the municipalities. So saying that, this resolution is very important. And the thing is, it is helping the individuals. By the year of 2023, I think it is, we'll have 100 of these basic transitional housing within the district. And hopefully, if it works out well in North Bay, I have a commitment from the board that we would expand this type of service in West Nipissing.
Okay, so if I were just to paraphrase that, the locations have been identified, the buildings are owned presently by DSAB, but it's to be able to have the proper funding from the province to be able to subsidize the operation of this service that you've identified.
The building is not owned by DSAB. The building's owned by one of the buildings, the main building at Chippewa is not owned by DSAB. We're renting. The other transitional housing, there's one with the Aboriginal population that's owned by them. So DSAB is in control of 60. Now the point is that what's happened is that we were given funds to build, but we were not given funds to operate. And Councillor Lees would attest to the fact that this type of operations is very expensive because you have to have people there 24/7.
So it's to implement a new service that's presently, we don't have the service that's presently available, and we want to make sure that this service 24/7 is being provided to a specific vulnerable group.
No, I just like to clarify that. We do have 16 transitional housing apartments right now in operation. So we are in operations.
Okay, so it's to get more money to expand.
Operate. That's right.
Okay, wanted, and for people of West Nipissing, they have to go through the system, but the door's open to them as well.
That's right.
Okay, Conseiller Lise, Conseiller Chris.
Well, just to add a little bit, obviously I've been out of it for a couple of years now. They used to, because this is the year I left, because they were changing the shelter to a low barrier shelter. And basically is we cannot really tell them nothing. They can do whatever almost they want. And we did not agree. And that's exactly why the board decided to dissolve the shelter in Sudbury for the youth. For that reason, because I mean, with drugs and everything, it's not an easy job, but they were paying, if we had kept the services, they were paying the operation though for it. So I don't understand why they don't want to pay for, and they should be paying for it. I mean, they should be paying, but they were paying, and I don't know, I'm sure, Catherine must be very familiar with Sudbury because she used to work for the city. So I don't know if they're still paying, but I don't know how can a shelter can operate a program like that if they're not subsidized by the federal. There's always a portion of fundraising, but I mean, not enough to maintain it. That's my comment. And
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Chris.
So I just out of interest, I see that we've got a point in time count of 300 people experiencing homelessness at October 2021. So, but I don't really see here, just interested sort of order of magnitude, what kind of funds that they're looking for. Is it 2 million? Is it 10 million? How much money are they actually asking for? Or is the ask just like, you pay for this service? And I guess that question is to Councillor Revita.
It's roughly $120,000 per month.
And
out of that
person.
number, $120,000 per month to operate the Chippewa area, the Chippewa site.
Right.
And the other comment that you made, Councillor Fisher, about having people on at the time when we did the study on the homeless, out of that there was 7 identified in West Nipissing.
Okay, they did the study in West Nipissing. Can DSAP provide a copy of that study for West Nipissing to all members of council so we can be familiarized with it? Because I know our municipality was involved in the process. There were various service providers. In the past, when that study was done, we were given a copy. It'd be interesting if we could be issued a copy.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification to the matter. Conseiller Chris?
No, it's okay. Sorry, I'll in a minute.
Okay.
I'll support
okay.
you.
Okay, but based on that, we know that there's a big need, and we know that there's a big need to cater, not just, for the city of North Bay, but to the entire district. And any step that we can move forward to be able to assist and help and expand on those services, I mean, it's so critical. So is there any further questions or comments required? None? Any objections pertaining to the resolution? Aucune objection, hearing none, carried, adopted.
Go, Christopher.
Okay, so we
Motion
have
for a
one
break.
more.
Motion for a break.
Yep. But you know what? If you have no objection, we have one more resolution before we move on to correspondence and accounts. So if we can just deal with this motion, this resolution, and then entertain your.
Well,
My concern is the next resolution.
Yeah.
I have some
Okay.
things to say.
No, it's okay. So there's a motion on the floor that's been moved by Chris Fisher, seconded by Conseiller Lise Sénécal, that council go into recess for 15 minutes at 7:59, 8 o'clock, so we can reconvene at 8:15. Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried, adopté. According to my watch, it's time to reconvene. So we'll need a mover and a seconder for the resolution to authorize an extension for the required repairs, replacement of vehicles as regulated under the taxi bylaw. Is there a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Yvon?
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Whereas bylaw number 2016-63 provides for the licensing, regulating, and governing of taxi operations in the West Nipissing municipality. And whereas the taxi bylaw provides that a taxi owner's license shall only be issued when the taxi owner has submitted the motor vehicle intended to be used as a taxi for visual inspection and produce satisfactory proof that the motor vehicle is less than 10 years of age. And section 23, taxi owner's license is issued shall be, unless sooner revoked, shall expire on February the 15th of each year following the date of issue and shall be considered valid after the annual license fees as illustrated have been paid to the corporation. And whereas council has received a request from the taxi seeking an extension for the licensing requirement of taxi cab vehicles in order to allow them to replace and or repair taxi cab vehicles in order to comply with the requirements of the bylaw. Be it therefore resolved that council for the West Nipissing municipality is agreeable to the request and grants the taxi an extension to March 15th, 2022 for the licensing of taxi cab vehicles.
Okay, so I gather that there's probably going to be some questions or comments. Any objections if I could do a round table? Conseiller Yvon?
Like I'm gonna, through my experience in the last 3 weeks, I've had 2 vehicles brought into the garage to have repairs on it. And I and it's true what is being said here with respect to COVID and the availability to parts and availability to vehicles of any sort. I've taken the liberty to try to find myself a truck in the market, and a used truck for that matter. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything that was suitable for what I wanted to pay or whatnot. And I ended up taking an older truck with less mileage than what I could find, bring it into the garage to get it certified. And I had to wait a couple of weeks for parts and whatnot. And there was even to a point where they had to go to a salvage place to get parts. So the parts availability is not there. Used vehicles availability is not there as well. So there is a problem, and I had just recently brought my newer truck in to get repaired. And again, parts availability is hard. The person that's asking for this extension is not lying, it is true. There's no used vehicles, and it's very hard to buy a newer vehicle as well. So I wouldn't have a problem extending it for at least a month, but things do have to shape up there and things have to get done. But let's at least give them that extra month just to see what happens. Thank you.
You're welcome, Conseiller Yvon. Conseiller Chris?
So my reasoning is a little different. Yes, I understand about the supply chain issues with vehicles, but I'd really like to see the taxi bylaw reopened, and I think if I support this, it'll never happen. At the beginning of the term, we did discuss the fact that the world has changed. There are rideshare programs, there are other people that want to offer services. And also what we've done here is we've created a monopoly. I realize historically, and I don't know the full history, historically it wasn't a monopoly, but essentially it's become a monopoly over time. And that's really kind of against the Municipal Act. We shouldn't be creating a monopoly or allow one to be created in any service, in my opinion. And as I say, I think there are other people that, there was some talk of somebody wanted to put a shuttle to North Bay, and there might be other people that want to run taxi services as well. So my reasoning behind not supporting this, one, on principle, and two, I would really like to put the taxi bylaw on the next agenda and and really have a go at it. So as we, North Bay added rideshare programs last year, has been uptake. Other people that want to run, it doesn't have to be traditional taxi service, but there are certainly ideas about other services around taxiing, and I think we owe it to our constituents to reconsider the taxi bylaw in its entirety. Thank you.
So based on your comments, Conseiller Chris, I just need to direct the question to the clerk. If the extension is not allocated to the taxi service provider, that means effective February 15th, if they're not in compliance, they're going to have to shut their door tomorrow?
The bylaw does provide that we would notify them that their license would be suspended. However, there are appeal provisions in the bylaw as well.
Okay, but I guess I just want for council members to understand. So if it's defeated tomorrow morning, is their license suspended?
We would notify them that their license will be suspended. However, I think we'd have to be somewhat careful because they do have contracts with, I believe, school boards. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jay.
The implication or the management of the bylaw and the enforcement part of the bylaw reports to Elisa, but what Melanie was saying and Elisa is that we probably serve them notice. I will point out that this resolution deals with one aspect of their compliance. It doesn't deal with all of the aspects of their compliance. February 15th was also the time by which they needed to renew their broker's license and also renew their taxi driver licenses as well. The purpose for the bylaw, just for the public's notice, is to ensure that the regulation we put in place is to ensure that people are driving in safe machines that were proven safe, and also by operators who are not a risk to the public. And so that's why our bylaw and municipal bylaws, taxi bylaws exist.
Yeah,
I'll point that out, but I think that Melanie should also maybe provide an update as to what's their status with respect to other aspects of the bylaw.
As of close of business today, we have not received the renewal of their taxi stand license, their dispatcher license, their owner's license, nor any of their other vehicles. We have three driver licenses only for the entire operation.
Okay, so I guess coming back to the original question, so they would be suspended, but then being suspended, from what I hear, is there implication that there would be dialogue with the operator to see if they can continue until a certain date? Is that what I hear?
Lisa, you want to speak on enforcement?
Yeah, so as Melanie said, we would provide notice, and when we provide notice that they're not in compliance, then we would also give a date. So because of the nature of the industry and the safety concerns, obviously, if council does not approve the extension, is that we might provide notice, and you've got a week, and then we are pulling the license, and that gives them an opportunity, that one last shot to get themselves organized, or to take advantage of the appeal provisions or whatever. Yeah, so if council approves the month and they've got the month on their vehicles, as Mr. Barbeau said, they are already out of compliance with the rest of their licensing provisions. So we may have an issue tomorrow morning either way with this file.
Okay, so really, I guess the answer, if I was going to paraphrase this, is that if the extension is not granted by council, then the enforcement is to say we suspend and provide a notice date. And at that notice date, if it's still non-compliance, then it means that they need to cease.
Correct.
Their operation.
Correct.
So, okay, so that notice that would be provided as per suspension, who negotiates this notice? Because we're being asked to give 4 weeks extension. So if council doesn't want to approve the extension, then for enforcement, staff can say, we're going to give you a week's notice, or we're going to give you to the end of the month notice. So why doesn't the resolution, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to spin my head around that and
So-
to make sure that we all understand it.
So if council doesn't approve the resolution, I mean, in theory, we can give them notice tomorrow that they are out of compliance and we're, revoking their licenses tomorrow. To be a little bit reasonable and to support ourselves on the file, I would lean toward giving a very short period, because obviously if council does not approve giving them a month notice to fix things, then I don't want to give them to the end of this month or 3 weeks or any kind of that kind of discretion on it, because again, we are talking safety. We are talking safety of vehicles, we're talking safety of individuals, we're talking transporting children. So obviously the timeline, if council doesn't approve this, is going to be very tight between moving from, yeah, by the way, you're out of compliance to, your license is revoked.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that all of this was understood and clear in our mind, the impact of our decision. Okay, so I'm moving on to Conseil Rowley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do quite agree that it's this is serious, and it's also serious to have put passengers in unsafe vehicle. We do have bylaws in place, and they have to be enforced. And so for that reason, because of the danger of this aspect, I would not support giving any extension. And also, I do concur with Councillor Chris that I would love to see this taxi license brought back. So maybe like it fitted at the time that it was, but I don't think it fits anymore. So with that being said, I cannot support an extension to this.
Conseil Leo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so do I. I will not support the extension for the simple reason. I mean, there's children riding in these vehicles, and then seniors, and it's not safe. And then we have a bylaw enforcement officer, and he's doing his job. If we don't support him, why do we have a bylaw? So, no, I say no.
Okay. Hearing the comments that have been shared, we'll continue. But I think it's compelling that there's clarification also provided by staff to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because I'm hearing the issue that we have children that are being transported in unsafe vehicles. We were all shared the sequential emails from the service provider with our clerk. My understanding is that they do not have the complement of 10 vehicles on the road, and that the complement of vehicles that they do have on the road, is there an issue with the vehicles that are on the road actually presently? Because the last email that I read, there was an assumption that they had 3.
From a law enforcement point as well, we did go out and serve them notice that they were required to have their 10 vehicles on the road. We originally had some concerns about that, and they actually came back to us and suggested that they had most of their vehicles on the road. Because we were coming up to the deadline of renewals, we were waiting on the renewals, at which point we would get all the safeties for the vehicles and understand what condition those vehicles were in. Failing that, we will have to do some harder investigation about how many vehicles are on the road. I'm not certain that we have the correct number of vehicles on the road.
Okay, and in the past, we had our bylaw enforcement officer that would normally do an inspection of these vehicles that were on the road. We had the bylaw enforcement officer, Monsieur Pilon, that had went on site and did an inspection of all the vehicles on the road because that was part of a task that our bylaw enforcement officer has. And he had agreed with all the vehicles that were on the road. So is our new bylaw enforcement officer doing the same thing?
That's not actually how the process works, and that's not what Mr. Pilon used to do either. So they provide their safety documentation once a year on their vehicles. We go and we test the meters and seal the meters on all the vehicles after we've gone through this licensing point so that we know that the meters are counting correctly. If we have concern or if we have received complaints regarding the condition of the vehicle, then we will ask about vehicles and cleaning schedules and things like that. If we have concerns about the mechanical fitness of a vehicle, then we will request that they take the vehicle to a licensed mechanic to prove the soundness of a vehicle that's on the road. But we were not inspecting for soundness of vehicles at any time.
Okay, but has our new bylaw enforcement officer done that? Has he went to verify the meters and made?
No, because that comes up once a year after this time. He hasn't been with us long enough. Bob
Okay.
and Frank did that before they left last year.
Okay. But I thought it was done at the same time for the renewal. Maybe I'm incorrect, but last year when Mr. Pilon did that, he did it at this time, if I'm not mistaken, either February or March. So why would our new bylaw enforcement officer not do it this time?
Because we will wait for the renewal, which is right now.
Oh,
Okay, so they haven't renewed.
okay, okay. So I'll move on to Conseil Dan, then Conseil Denis, Conseil Alice.
So to correct me if I'm wrong, Madame Lisa, they have 10 vehicles, so that means they have 10 licenses. Every year, every vehicle has to pass a mechanical, and it's not done by us, it's done by a certified mechanic that does a mechanical to ensure the safety of the vehicles. So right now, they are non-compliant. They're non-compliant for various reasons. So for the principle of the thing, I can't understand why they wouldn't have sought compliance before the last moment. Like if you're in business, shouldn't you be seeking your compliance a couple of weeks before February 15th? So I just for the principle of not doing that, I have a hard time supporting this because it does become a safety issue because we could become liable as a municipality. So that's my position. So just to ask another question, if I may, we have 10 licenses only in the municipality for taxis.
That's correct.
And our municipality's grown since why? And then the monopoly issue, isn't that another issue? Doesn't that fall in the face of?
It's not really a monopoly issue. It's an issue that in the past there were two service providers, and Mélanie can give a little bit of history regarding that. And in the day they had one. Mélanie, do you have a little bit of history to clarify the issue of the monopoly?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were three providers when the bylaw was originally, and they each had 4 licenses. So there's a total of 12. It's based on a proportionate X number per number of population. I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but it's based on the population. So it's 1 license per a certain number, and at that number the population hasn't grown substantially in the last that would necessitate another license being issued. So over time, all that to say, over time, through businesses being bought out and sold, it ended up that the current owner acquired all of the licenses that were available.
And I believe at the time, it was also based on the expenditures and the revenues for sole proprietors to operate with 4 licenses versus operating with more than 4 licenses. It's a business decision. What equates to making money and at the same time providing the service.
Supplemental to that, Madam Mayor. Am I
He's waiting
allowed?
for you, Madam Mayor, to say yes.
Yes.
So these licenses, do you buy them?
Will you pay for your annual renewal? They're issued based on, it's a municipal, they pay for the license each year.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's like a driver's license.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to Conseil Denis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to start off with, I have a hard time when councillors are accusing a company of using unsafe vehicles to carry children or passengers. I think that's malicious, and that this company has been in Sturgeon for 13 years, I can see. And I don't think they deserve to be put down by councillors in a public forum. I find that very, very disturbing. And if they were unsafe, I don't think they would be on the road. And I think the owners are more prudent than that. And to revoke a license is to say that the business is shut down. I'm not ready to shut down a business in Sturgeon that's been here for 13 years. I think we should give them at least a month. I think we're jumping the gun. Even if we don't give them the month, we won't get a taxi for another couple of months probably. So I think they're trying. They only have 3 vehicles on the road. And with COVID and the contracts we've had with the town, for contractors, we know that COVID affects everything and that it's a reasonable demand. There's no reason to shut them down. Why would we do this? It surpasses me that we're so anti-business that we would shut down a business. I don't know if it's personal issues, but whatever it is, I think to say that they're unsafe vehicles on the road and not to give them a chance to put their vehicles back on the road safely, and that's what they want. And I don't think a month is excessive. And if they can't do it in a month, well, that's another issue. But I think we should give them a month and let them find the parts and the cars. And we know the lots, just go into Sturgeon, you see the lots for vehicles are empty. So they have a grief that's reasonable, I think. And I think that council should be a little more lenient for our businesses. I mean, is that the kind of support that we want for our businesses, that as soon as they're out for a day, we're going to close them down? What kind of council is this? It's unreasonable to me. And I'm not a businessman. But anyways, that's the way I feel. And I think they should have an extension. It's not the end of the world. It's only a month. By the time we shut them down, it's going to be probably closer to a couple of weeks anyways. So why are we being so anti-business here? We should be ashamed, really, to cause such harm to a business that's been here for 13 years. You should look back at your conscience tonight and rethink about this. It's unbelievable. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well, I did spoke with Pat yesterday to an update because I saw the email that went around with between her and Madam Clerk, and also I asked question, and I mean to assume that even I think right now they have 5 taxi. What happened is, first of all, the 10 license, there's 3 license that dedicated for how do you call those vehicle accessible for a wheelchair. And am I right or wrong? Okay, there's
Uh-uh.
3 vehicles, and I think it's very clear. It would cost them about $80,000, and there's the need is not there because we have Au Chateau that's providing that service for the wheelchair. So those license, I'm pretty sure that, I mean, that I'm not gonna go there, but that just want to clarify that. Also, they're saying by tomorrow, they have 2 car accident before, completely wrecked. There were 2 damaged car that they were waiting for part. And I mean, if somebody doesn't believe that COVID, it's slowing thing, well, look at construction last year. There's people that they would have probably had built a lot more house last year. But I mean, I know for a fact on Dover Court that they waited 3 months for the thing of shingle, what do you call that, to put on the roof. They could not get them. So, you know, it's, and to say right now, do you have proof that the vehicle that's on the road, they will not pass the mechanical? Do you have proof of that? Do you have proof that should not be safe for our children, should not be safe for our people? Do you have the proof of that?
Who
Well, I'm
are you
asking.
You're directing the question.
I'm directing
who?
to anybody that can answer me because
Okay,
it
well,
seems
I'm
that
just going to direct the question to the
I'm not
clerk.
finished, Councilor Yvonne Fisher after. I'm not finished with that.
No, but I'm going to direct the question about, is there proof about the vehicles that are presently on the road transporting youth and passengers, that those vehicles on the road are not safe?
Madam Mayor, just a point, the person responsible, as I indicated, for enforcement, the enforcement officer reports to Madam or Ms. Craddock, just so that you're directing it properly. Thanks.
I'll direct it then to our Director of Corporate Services. Do we have proof? That's what Conseil Elise is asking.
So as I explained before, we don't inspect the vehicles. If we've been concerned with the mechanical fitness on a vehicle, we would request that they take it to a licensed mechanic to determine that it was still safe to be on the road. Because we were so close to what we thought we were going to get, all the renewals, including all the safeties, we were just going to wait till the safeties came in. If the safeties don't come in, I mean, it sort of goes around. So yes, we have registered complaints with documented evidence to make us suspicious of a number of vehicles that would have to be inspected in order to stay on the road right now.
Okay, but the question asked by Conseil Elise is, do we have proof that identifies that they are not safe to transport anyone?
We can take that. We can ask them to go to the shop tomorrow for that proof.
So we don't have it right now. Conseil Elise?
Well, before we make a decision, I think we need to have those facts. I mean, well, you're saying no, Jay, but I mean, we're talking about the livelihood and people that's going to lose their job and a service that it's needed right now. So and to not, I understand whatever that it's an issue. If after 15 days, it's not done and they don't provide everything that they need, I can understand that. But to say tonight that we got to vote and shut a business down tomorrow doesn't make too much sense in my book. Because I mean, if we start going at all the business, first of all, a few business that I'm not going to go there either, because we're going to stick to the issue that we're talking about. So I'm floor. I'm completely floor. I know since day one, if you want to revisit, there's 2 things here on the table. If you don't, you think there's a monopoly, it can be brought back, but to shut down a business tomorrow morning without having paper in your hand that's saying that those vehicles are not safe, I think it would be pretty. And then talking about liability for this municipality, and they all come back 4 or 5 cars that should be on the road by tomorrow. They're going to come back all clear. And you got to take away their license tomorrow.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
No,
wow. Point of order.
Conseil Rowley, I'm going to pass it on to our Director of Corporate Services. She has her hand up and potentially has further information to share.
So
the point of order, if I may, Madam Mayor, I raised a point of order, and my point of order is supersedes the conversation. And my point of order is the proof of burden is not on us, it's on them. They were asked to bring papers, they did not.
No.
Okay,
No.
then I'm not finished, Madam Mayor. I'm the one that had the floor and I'm not finished.
Okay, just a second here.
I'm gonna ask,
The ruling on the point of order, we are debating the subject matter about an extension. There's been allegation that what they are driving right now endangers the life of our children and passengers. Conseil Elise is asking, do we have the proof? Because here we are stating this publicly, that they are endangering the life of people. And it's a reasonable question to ask. And I don't think, Conseil Rowley, that there's any violation to our procedures that you can identify that prohibits asking this clarification.
I think I can probably clarify it if I can have the floor after all, Madam Mayor.
I'll pass it on to you to, if you can provide additional information.
That's actually the reason why it has come to council. And that's the reason why the clerk initially declined an extension on the request sort of a week ago, is that we have a bylaw that says that every year they must submit safeties to prove that the vehicles are still safe to be on the road. So as of today, we don't have these. If council grants the extension, council is saying, yeah, I feel okay, that the risk is okay because it is just a month and we're not extending it too far and we feel okay with this risk. Because as of now, as it is a little bit like Councillor Larrabee was saying, that the proof is on them. The vehicles as of today aren't safetied and aren't safetied under our bylaw to fit. Could they all pass tomorrow? Potentially. But what council has to say, that's why Melanie couldn't give them the extension. Council has to say, yeah, I'm okay with the risk. I'm okay with bending our bylaw. I'm okay with stepping out and granting them the extension for the month. I don't think anyone has come right out and said that the vehicles aren't safe for children, but the concern is that children are in the vehicles. And right now, as of today, we don't have any proof that these vehicles are considered sound anymore. And so that's what council is weighing. How much of a risk do you feel comfortable accepting for that month extension?
Gee.
I'm not
Conseil
finished.
Elise,
Well, the thing is, I can understand that, Madam Alicia, I understand that. But I mean, you gave them 48 hours to show that proof because the rest to repair the vehicle, to replace the vehicle, we all know it's an issue right now across. So you call them tomorrow and you say, if you cannot bring up the proof in 48 hours of the vehicle you have on the road that they are not safe, then you revoke. But I mean, you cannot just tonight we make that decision and tomorrow we're revoking without even asking, because you said it yourself. They might all be safe. We don't know.
so if I were
Anyways,
to
Madam Mayor, I said my piece, and I mean, at the end of the day, council make decision. So
okay, can I just paraphrase so far? So right now, the compliance for the bylaw is 10 licenses. A, not all the vehicles are presently on the road, which would be 10 vehicles. There's an assumption that probably there's 3 vehicles. There's been information that's been shared that they had vehicles that were no longer on the road because of car accidents. And I believe it's 3, minimum of 3 vehicles. And then the remaining of the inventory requires repairs where parts have been a challenge to obtain. So the non-compliance issue is that they don't have the full complement of vehicles that should be on the road, 1. 2, the issue of vehicles that require repairs, and 3, replacement.
There's a fourth one.
There's a 4th one?
Yeah. They haven't given proof, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And then the supporting documentation that was also required. Would that be a fair paraphrasing of the actual situation? I'll pass it on to our Director of Corporate Services.
I think you've done a paraphrasing, but I think the question that is in front of council tonight is granting the extension on the vehicles. So both the extension of the fact that we've got vehicles that are past 2011 and should come off the road, and whether the vehicles are safety or not. So I think the extension on the vehicle, as we did mention, we still have a concern about we have received none of the other paperwork as well. So they may be out of compliance by tomorrow morning, even if council does grant this extension. So we do have 2 things, but the extension in front of you is for the vehicles. and just that, like I said, the replacement of the 2011 vehicles and getting the safeties to the municipality.
Okay. I believe I saw that our clerk and possibly our CEO had their hand up. No, not the clerk.
So through you, Your Worship, so what you have before you is kind of interesting to me, because the bylaw has a deadline in it, and so the person who has all of the all of the licenses, brokers, taxi, and all of that has that. So there was time prior to for the renewal, but for reasons that they explain, they couldn't get to it, and so they're asking for extensions. We don't have the power to grant that. But the other part of it that I indicated, which isn't even on this agenda, but just so that you are aware, even if you granted this extension, it wouldn't necessarily absolve them of other non-compliant issues, which in our opinion are equally important, or in the past council's opinion, who actually passed this bylaw. It's a council bylaw. And so what we want to make sure is that the people driving those vehicles have have been vetted and passed the appropriate checks. And that needs to happen as well. Otherwise, what happens, the longer you delay and you provide extensions, then the liability between the time you provided that extension and the time that they comply is on the municipality. So you're absorbing some of the liability should something happen to a passenger, either through an accident or through some other terrible means. So I'm just letting you know that the issue that the reason the bylaw is there is for the operator to ensure that they are complying and to show us all the proof. And so there's some proof that hasn't been provided by today, and the cars are only one of them.
Yeah, and if I may, thanks for highlighting that point, Jay. I believe on the emails that I've read, and correct me if I'm wrong, the emails that I've read, the operator identified that they had all the other supporting documentation to provide to the clerk pertaining to the driver's license, the requirements for the drivers, and so on and so on. The only concern that they had at this point had to do with the vehicle issue. That's what I understood from the emails I read. I sort of grasped that part, saying that we have all the other stuff that you need. However, we need an extension for this, and we feel compatible that we can meet all by March 15th.
Right. So on the vehicle thing, that's one thing. If the operator has the appropriate documentation and applications to satisfy the other things, it should have been done prior to today, but that will become an operational matter with staff and enforcement. And so when they provide the notice of non-compliance, then from what you're telling me, that will be an easy matter for them to resolve. But that's not on the table. That's an operational enforcement issue that they have not asked for an extension for. So that'll be handled by staff.
Okay. So I guess due to the light of what I've been hearing, I'll call it to a recorded vote. And I do have the opportunity to have a say on the subject matter. I do know that they're not complying because A, they don't have the required number of vehicles in operation. That means that there's a lack of service to the individuals requiring transportation service. However, I echo some comments that they are a business that have been servicing the community in the surrounding area and transportation of many individuals, to either schools or programs outside the boundaries of West Nipissing. And based on that, they're asking a reasonable timeline, 4 weeks, to meet all the issues pertaining to their licensing requirement, 4 weeks. And that's the grace period that's being asked. And they've identified the concerns related to COVID, like Conseiller Yvon mentioned, pertaining to replacement parts and even inventory of vehicles. So to me, with the amount of vehicles that they have right now, I would be willing to grant that extension because A, tomorrow morning, if we suspended, they may have some vehicles that do pass the safety concerns and they do provide transportation, and it means we have no one, and no one has the service in their backyard. And it was identified, I don't think that the service, we can restore service overnight. And if it's the will to address this issue on either a short-term or longer period, well, there's probably other mechanisms to be able to do it. But anyway, I'll ask the clerk to call it to a recorded vote. I've had my say on the issue.
Just to clarify, Madam Mayor, if I can ask the corporate service, Alyssa, a question, please.
Please proceed, and then we're calling it to a vote.
Madam Alyssa, you mentioned that if, for example, the motion didn't pass this evening, you mentioned that that you would have to make arrangements to end their services, but you'd have to give them a time to do that. Is that, am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, so like I said, to be reasonable, like, so if this motion fails tonight, then obviously council doesn't approve a month timeline. So it would be a very narrow window, but it would give them an opportunity if they had the paperwork sitting in their office to bring us the paperwork and things like that and rectify the situation. So we might give them, 7 days or something like that, just a very short, tight window before we proceeded with revoking the license.
Okay.
So that's great to know. So if you don't mind, Madam Mayor. So if they bring in what they have to the staff, that could certainly change things.
No.
Am I correct in saying that, Madam Melissa? If they
It
brought in
depends-
stuff tomorrow.
It depends what they have. Yeah, so,
Yeah,
I mean, if they've actually got vehicle safety and they've actually got their paperwork for their license renewals and they've actually got all of that, then, yeah, but I don't know what they have.
Can I
They have their-
clarify? Can I
I got it
clarify
right.
that? Just a second, Councillor. Can I just clarify that statement to make sure that it's clearly understood and that we don't leave here tonight thinking that tomorrow, if the service provider is notified that they're not in compliance, that their license is being suspended for reason A, B, C, and if they come forward with A, B, and if they're still non-compliant for C, then their license is suspended. Would that be correct?
And it depends on A, B, and C. So if they come forward and they've got their safeties on all their vehicles, they've got all their driver's licenses with all the background checks done, they come in and they pay their fees. And what we have is we have one vehicle that's a 2011 that hasn't been replaced yet, then we may go in and say, you can't have that vehicle on the road, but it would not necessarily affect their entire fleet if they've got a fleet of 9 other vehicles that are safe and on the road, right? Then we would give them warning, we need to have all your licenses, you're required to have this sort of stuff, and you can't drive that 2011. But we're just talking hypotheticals at this point. I have no idea what situation their paperwork is in. I can't really begin to tell you, what might happen tomorrow morning with what they have. But certainly, we would notify them that they were out of compliance, give them a very narrow time window to get into compliance, and then before we revoke license.
Okay, but they did say that they cannot be in compliance with the fleet of their vehicles to have 10 vehicles on the road that meets all the specs. Like tomorrow, they need a month. They need a month to be able to pick up vehicles at dealerships out of town. They need a month to repair some vehicles to get the parts that are sitting at dealerships in the yard. So even if they have everything else, the reality of what we are told by the service provider, what we are given pertaining to the bylaw, is that even if they come, I'm just trying to provide a clear picture so there's no false hope or assumptions based on the facts that we're discussing this evening. That's what I'm trying to do.
Madam Mayor, I have a clear picture here that to me, the risk is way too great to the municipality to allow that. We have bylaws in place. We have to support our bylaws.
Okay, but I
Thank
just
you.
want to make sure that it was clear based on the question of Conseil Yvon. So Conseil Yvon, does it address your issue?
Yeah, I just, in essence, Madame Melissa is correct. You just can't close the doors. You have to phone them tomorrow and say, listen, there's an open door opportunity here for you to bring in your papers, and you have to bring them soon because council is not very happy with respect to what's happening right now. So they have to prove to Madame Melissa that what they have is there, and then she has to, let's give her that opportunity to at least approach them, find out what's happening, and then come back, I guess the next council meeting and advise us as what the situation. But if she feels, and let her determine that, if she feels that they're not in compliance and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and yes, there is a danger, then I would leave it up to Madame Melissa to make that decision, because she does have to have an opportunity to discuss the issues with the others in order to understand what really is happening. And the deadline is, we don't want to give them much of a deadline, but she knows that she has to have a procedure in place to provide them an opportunity. And I agree with that, Madame Melissa, and I would favor having you do that in order to, so that they can comply. And if they can't comply, well, the game's over.
So I think Director of Corporate Services wants to provide a response to that.
Just to we feel like we're kind of going around and around here, but I just want to be very clear that it is not my call. That's why this is in front of council. And so I appreciate the support, but if council doesn't approve it and they don't have their paperwork in order, then we are going to move fairly quickly. If they have their paperwork in order, Councillor Duhaime, then we'll absolutely deal with their paperwork. But if council doesn't approve this resolution and they don't have any paperwork in order, then we're going to move fairly quickly. And it's not going to be at my discretion, because council will have had this decision here.
So the assumption will be, if they have the paperwork's in order, but they don't have all the vehicles pertaining to the licenses, it means they're not in compliance, so they're not going to be provided. There's not going to be negotiation to respond to Conseil Yvon.
If we're missing the safeties on the vehicles, you're correct. There's not a negotiation on it. No.
Okay.
But if they have
the safety on the vehicles on the road,
then we'll take their paperwork and we'll review their paperwork. Absolutely.
Okay. And then does it come back to council, or is it just?
If they're in compliance and they've got enough paperwork, then it doesn't need to come back to council. We'll just approve the stuff. If council doesn't approve the extension tonight, then it also does not need to come back to council. That we're just going to move on enforcement.
Okay. I think it's clear.
Okay, vote.
So going back to the clerk, I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Did you want me to reread the last bit of the resolution, Madam Mayor?
If you may, that would be appreciated.
And whereas council received a request from the taxi seeking an extension for the licensing requirement of taxi cab vehicles in order to allow time to repair and replace vehicles in order to comply with the requirements of the bylaw, be it therefore resolved that council for the West Nipissing Municipality is agreeable to the request and grants the taxi an extension to March the 15th, 2022 for the licensing of taxi cab vehicles. Councillor Duhaime.
Yes.
Councillor Fisher.
No.
Councillor Larrabee.
No.
Councillor Mallette.
No.
Councillor Ravita.
No.
Councillor Denis Senecal.
Yes.
Councillor Lee Senecal. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Joanne Savage.
Yes.
Motion is defeated.
So tomorrow morning, notification is going to be provided to the service provider, and if they're not in compliance, they can be shut down as soon as tomorrow or probably in a couple of days.
No, that's not realistic.
Well, that's.
Vote.
I just
Okay,
wanna
it's
keep it at
over,
that.
it's over.
It's over. OK.
We did what we could.
No, c'est correct, Conseil Alice. I just wanted to conclude,
Okay,
summarize all
Madame
this
Mayor.
discussion.
Okay,
It's
Madame
done.
Mayor.
So, on procède avec les courriers et comptes, correspondance, correspondence and accounts. And a mover and a seconder for the minutes of September 7th. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Jafame. Be it resolved that the minutes of the council meeting held on September the 7th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Are there any questions or comments? None. Can I ask a question, and I may need a response either from our CEO or possibly the clerk? I know I've brought this up a few times. I don't want to dwell on the issue, but I need clarification to be able to comprehend. Our procedural bylaw, section 11.5, and I've asked the question before, but I don't recall that I did get clarity on the matter pertaining to no quorum. It states that the record of names of members that were present at the expiration of 30 minutes in such record shall form part of the agenda at the next regular meeting. So I'm asking the question because I do know that there were some meetings that there was no quorum. There's a record that's kept of the names of those that were at that meeting, but those names are not being reflected nowhere. And according to this procedure, they should be recorded somewhere. And I'll give the example that the September 3rd was a special meeting that was called where there were 4 members in attendance waiting for quorum. But where are those records being identified on subsequent agendas? Because there's quite a few from September to December. So if there's no answer this evening, is it fair to say that we can get an answer by the next meeting? And if it needs to be recorded somewhere, either in minutes, either on the agenda, that we can be updated on how those records are going to be reflected?
It is in the minutes, Madam Mayor.
But we don't have minutes of the meetings that were canceled due to no quorum. And this section, I just want to highlight it, if staff can review it, because there were calls of meetings where there were members that did go out to the meeting to attend, waited for quorum, and those individuals, the names should be recorded, even if it was staff also that was present should be recorded. And according to the procedural bylaw, it says such record shall form part of the agenda at the next meeting. But insofar, I haven't seen it nowhere. So I just brought it up because I know we're adopting a lot of minutes. I don't expect the changes to be done this evening, but if it can be looked into and for council to be briefed on the matter. Would that be fair? I'm directing the question to the CEO, to the clerk. Is that fair?
Well, sure. I don't have an explanation in front of you, but if what you're reading, the intent of what you're reading, it probably should be. It's probably one of those clauses we've never used before. And so I can see why it would have been an oversight, but we'll have a look at that, and the clerk's area will rectify whatever needs to be rectified.
Okay, thank you. Were there any questions pertaining to the minutes of September 7th? Conseiller Denis?
I'm a little confused. Should we adopt the minutes before they're rectified, or if they're rectified, then they go unchallenged. Should we wait till the staff has a chance to look at the procedure? And then we could probably adopt the minutes, but to adopt the minutes now is saying, well, you can't add after it's adopted, I think. I'm not sure.
I see that our clerk wants to provide a response.
I thought that the question of the mayor pertained to minutes of meetings or records of meetings that actually didn't take place, not that the question was being directed at the September 7th meeting, because those ones reflect who was or wasn't there.
I did provide an example, September 3rd.
Well, there were more than one example.
September 3rd was a meeting that was canceled due to lack of no quorum. However, there were 4 people that were present and waited the 30 minutes. So the record for the agenda of September 7th should reflect those that were in attendance at the September 3rd. So Conseiller Denis asking if we adopt these minutes now, how are we going to be able to ensure that those records are reflected?
The bylaw says that it shall form part of the agenda at the next regular meeting, not the minutes. So where we should have recorded it is on the subsequent agenda, if it was to be done. And as the CIO said, it's not something we ever did before, so I do apologize for the oversight.
Okay, Conseiller Denis.
Well, it's an oversight, but it needs to be done. Like September 3rd, we were there for 30 minutes and it should be reflected somewhere. I mean, I don't know how you're going to do it. I'm against adopting the minutes until this is settled.
But the clerk does have a point. It's not the minutes, it's the agendas. And I don't know how we're going to reflect those changes. I know I brought up that question in the past, but really didn't. Anyway.
Well, I got maybe.
What would be, I was going to ask a question to the clerk. Should we defer these for the time being until this is researched and come back with because it's not going to change anything if we delay the approval of these minutes by 2 weeks.
That's not my decision, Madam Mayor. That's council's decision.
I have something to say.
I'm just going to, okay, Conseiller Elise.
Well, it may be, in those minutes tonight, this meeting, I think it should be reflected the date of the meeting that there were no quorum, and there's more than one. So you cannot go back on the agenda, they're done, but it's got to be reflected somewhere. And we're talking about it tonight, so it could be added the next, just the date and who was present, who was not. And it's not hard to remember. And I think, Mel, it was you at all, and I think Stéphane and Monsieur Poulain and Monsieur Barbeau are there at once. So that would need to be reflected. So you go back and we all redo the agenda or what, but they need to be reflected.
Okay, so it's not the minutes, it's the agenda.
I know that.
There's an option that's been identified that in the minutes, or maybe at our next meeting, we can have sort of information identifying which were the meetings, what were the records, and that they be part.
We can put together an item for the next meeting.
No.
Go ahead.
So what I heard, and I'm taking folks at their word, is that 11.5 said minutes. It doesn't say the minutes. So so what you have before you tonight is a approval of the minutes or not. With respect to a request going forward, I would either, if there was a unanimity here at council, to direct staff for the next meeting, or in the alternative that a request be made in the appropriate manner because they're separate issues.
Okay. So it would be fair to ask council if we wait and defer the approval of the minutes for another 2 weeks.
Is that what he said?
No.
Madam Mayor, if I may,
No, I will pass it on to you, Conseil Rowley. I just heard the CEO say no.
No, what I said is you should deal with the minutes tonight. The minutes tonight, based on the information you provided, what you're discussing does not affect the minutes. And so you can approve the minutes as contemplated in the agenda. If something said where we need to go back and we omitted adding information on subsequent agendas, then that ship has sailed. So then there is a request by some to at least have a report where people showed up and people didn't. And so what I'm saying is you can deal with the agenda tonight. You don't need to defer it because there's no need to. And then but then if you want to have those dates recorded somewhere where some of you showed up and others didn't, then that's a request that you can have for a report going forward. So you can ask that now. If there's a majority of council, then we'll be directed to do so. It doesn't need to be a resolution, just a straw poll vote. But if that's not the wish of council, then we won't be doing it. That's the only reason I like to have a little bit more clarity, a little bit as a comment that was made a little earlier about something that may or should have been done or whatever. And we're taken aback always when that's said, because unless it's actually directed in the appropriate manner and one person said it, and we didn't get the sense that it was the wish of council, then it becomes a problem for us to know when to.
Well, I just want to clarify, Jay, I did ask the question via email, but didn't get a response to it. It's been asked in the past. It's been asked in the past, but it hasn't been recorded anywhere. And our procedures say that it should be recorded somewhere. So when you say it should be a straw poll, I'm asking that the procedures, that we respect our procedures. I'm just looking at how it can be facilitated. And based on what you're saying, it's not going to change the minutes as they're presented, but then we'll receive an update at our next meeting.
If I'm directed to.
Directed to. So.
Right. So, in your training, your council directs me. So if there's 5 of you.
I know that council provides direction. I know. But
Right.
when you highlight an issue pertaining to procedures and it's not being recorded, it needs to be recorded. That's what the procedures do state. So I'm not looking at fixing the problem this evening, but how can it be reflected somewhere? So what I hear is that it does not affect the actual minutes that are being presented to us. So it's not a reason to delay the minutes. That's what I hear. So we can proceed with the minutes.
Good.
Okay.
Conseil Denis, Conseil Rowley.
Just my comment, I don't agree, and I don't think we should vote on these minutes tonight.
Rowley.
So if there's a motion to defer minutes, then that needs to be done formally, and then that
That's what I was
needs to be
going to
voted
say.
on. Thank
So
you.
Conseil Denis is moving that the minutes be deferred until this is explored further. Is there a seconder for the motion to defer? I see Conseil Yvon.
And it could be fixed after on the agenda if we do that.
Okay, so let's try.
So there's a motion for deferral, there's a mover and a seconder, and I'm going to call it to a vote for the deferral for staff to review on how this can be recorded. So I'm calling it to a vote.
So if there's a motion to defer, we don't discuss it any further, right?
That's correct. I'm calling it to a vote.
Well, why would we vote on it? Just
Because we need to vote on a motion for deferral. Any motion that's being tabled needs to be voted on.
So can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
For the motion to defer, for clarity, are we just talking about the minutes of September the 7th?
It's the motion to defer,
all of the.
I would say, all of the regular minutes that are dating back to November 29. And even the minutes of January 18, because the minutes of January 18 should have reflected who were present at the November 30th meeting, where we did have some presence, but we had no quorum.
Not
It
the
states here that the record should reflect it. So there's a request for a report.
Point of order. It says the agenda. We're talking about two different things. It does not
You know what?
say the minutes. It says the
There's no
agenda.
point of order right now, Conseiller Chris. Right now, there's a motion that we need to vote on. And clarification was given to the clerk. There's a motion to defer the minutes up to and including January 18 for the reasons that it was stated. And we need to vote on that. Conseiller Dan, he asked for a recorded vote on the deferral.
Can I just want clarification. I'm going to ask this here. Do we need a separate deferral for each one, or can we do one deferral for the whole works?
You can combine them.
Can we can combine everything?
No, so there's a motion on the floor to defer the minutes of September the 7th, September 21st, October 5th, October 19th, November 2nd, November 15th, November 16th, November 29th, and January 18th. Council regular minutes. Recorded vote. Councillor Duhaime.
Yes.
Councillor Fisher.
No.
Councillor Larrabee.
No.
Councillor Mallette.
No?
Councillor Revita.
Nope.
Councillor Denise Senecal.
Yes,
Councillor Lee Senecal.
We,
Councillor Mayor Joanne Savage.
Yes.
Motion to defer is defeated.
but that doesn't stop us to have the thing
Okay,
repaired. though.
Conseiller Lise, the issue was discussed. We'll wait for further information. In the interim, we revert back to the resolution for the minutes of September 7th. Do we have the mover and the seconder, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Any objections with the minutes that are beforehand? Conseiller Denis?
object.
Okay, sorry, sorry. my
Also
bad.
object.
So there's two objections, but okay, with two objections,
Object.
Or object.
I object as well until we can clarify this matter.
So we can play two at this.
Yes.
We're
So
safe
we
to
want
So the
assume that
motion
all
is
the minutes
defeated.
are going to be defeated.
Yeah.
So it's 9:23. Pretty soon you're gonna have to extend
Just a
it.
it.
minute,
Go through
Conseil
the-
Lise, in fairness to the clerk, I just want the clerk. I know the time, we're.
No, we're not
near
doing it right
9:30.
now.
I know, but I was just asking a question for clarification to the clerk. So do we have to adopt a resolution for each of the minutes?
No, we said no. We can put everything together.
If there's an intention to defeat them all in the same manner as September the 7th, I don't see a lot of point in calling them all. Jay?
The motion to defer was a group one because you had one single issue. The minutes all stand on their own on the validity on the minutes, so I wouldn't recommend combining them unless you had consent agendas, but you don't, so.
Well, I will read the resolution for each one.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
So September 7th is defeated. I need a mover and a seconder for September 21st.
Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Rowley,
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 21st of September 2021 be adopted as presented.
those in favor? Defeated.
Mover and a seconder for minutes of October 5th.
Mover and a seconder, Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Chris,
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 5th of September 2021 be adopted as presented.
those in favor? Defeated?
Minutes of October 19th.
A mover and a seconder, Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Yvon, Those in favor?
I gotta read the resolution, please.
Oh, sorry.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 19th of October 2021 be adopted as presented.
Those in favor? Defeated?
Until November 2nd.
A mover and a seconder, Conseil Denis, Conseil Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on November the 2nd, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Those in favor? Defeated?
November the 15th.
A mover and a seconder, Conseil Yvon. Conseil Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on November the 15th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Those in favor?
Sorry.
Defeated? Mover and a seconder, Conseil Yvon, Conseil Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on the minutes of the meeting of council held on November the 16th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Those in favor? Defeated? Mover and a seconder, Conseil Denis, Conseil Chris.
I'm sorry, I missed the first name, I apologize.
Conseil Denis
Sorry.
and Conseil Chris.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on November the 29th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Those in favor? Defeated? Mover and a seconder, Conseil Yvon, Conseil Rowley.
Moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on January the 18th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Those in favor? Defeated?
Madam Mayor, I think we're breaking our procedure. It's 9:30 and we have not sought for curfew for extension.
No, well, it's 9:30, you said it. It's over now.
Please allow the chair to get a
Sorry.
mover and a seconder. We're not really breaking the procedure. We are near the time. We are at 9:30. We have a mover, Conseil Elise. And Conseil Dan, do you want a second? Since you've brought the issue forward, do you want to be the seconder for the resolution to extend the curfew beyond 9:30? Yes or no?
He does all right.
Conseil Dan.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Conseil Chris, please refrain. I'm asking a question to Conseil Dan. He brought up the issue that we need a resolution to extend the curfew. So do you agree to second the motion? Yes?
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you. So moved by Conseil Elise, seconded by Conseil Dan.
At approximately 9:30 p.m., a motion was tabled to extend the regular meeting beyond the regular curfew in order to proceed with the agenda.
Okay, so I'll call it to a vote. Those that wish to extend the curfew, who is in favor of the resolution? 1, 2, 3, 4, defeated. We are not going beyond 9:30, the set curfew. We need a mover and a seconder to be able to adjourn. Conseil Yvon, Conseil Chris,
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-25, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 15th of February 2022, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
All in favor? Carried. Adoptee.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on February the 15th, 2022 be adjourned.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Adoptee. Carried. So this concludes our council meeting for this evening. Ceci conclut notre réunion